Welcome to my little channel, State of Mind Hypnosis and Training Center. And I'd love to introduce to you today Chris Batts. Chris Batts is an NDE experiencer. And in September of 2012, Chris Batts jumped out of a moving car in an attempt to end his life. He found himself outside of his body, looking down at himself as paramedics worked away on him. He met with a man he calls God, as well as meeting his guardian angels, where he was given the choice as to whether or not to come back to his body. Following his NDE, Chris found that he could communicate with his guardian angels and now works to inspire others through his YouTube channel, which I will link below this video. He's also speaking at this year's IONS conference about NDEs and suicide on Sunday, September 5th. 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Time. Chris also wrote a book on his NDE account called Boom, The Life and Times of a Suicide Near-Death Experiencer, which I will also link to below this video. So thank you for joining me, Chris, and welcome.
And thank you for having me.
Thank you. So, so this is going to be a very kind of organic interview where we're gonna, Chris is gonna talk about his NDE, and we'll see where it goes. So I'd love to have Chris start with wherever you want to start with.
Do you want me to start from the beginning or just go to the NDE?
Yeah, maybe a little bit about the beginning, and then go to the NDE, and we'll just go from there. Yeah.
Okay, so long story short, from the beginning, I grew up without my mother and father. Father wasn't around. Mom got pregnant. She had me up until I was 6 months. She then took me and threw me inside of a neighborhood dumpster, which was across the street from where we lived at. So she went in. I guess before that, from what my grandma tells me, she had dreams and aspirations of being a model, and she was on her way to something. And that's when she got pregnant. So that basically ruined her whole plans. So I don't know, maybe something up here just told her, just made her sick, or I don't know what. But after she had a baby, I don't know if it was like the postpartum or something, but yeah, she threw me in a dumpster, and the neighbor happened to come outside and found me. I guess the neighbor took out her trash and she heard a baby crying. So she's like, oh my God, I know who his mom is. The lady calls my grandma, since my grandma's at church on this day. So she calls the church. She tells my grandma, you need to get home. I just seen your grandson in the dumpster, and he's with me, and he's not going anywhere until you come. So my grandma came and took me. So from there, she went to court. She got custody of me for a few years, and the judge told my mom she could never have me again. So my grandma had me up until I was 4. Stayed a couple places, and then I went finally to my mom's sister, who my mom hated, and they didn't like each other. So this is who I live with for a few years now. During this time, it wasn't the best experience in this house. I was very abused mentally, physically, and that just mentally and physically, like really emotionally, just abused, like on a almost daily basis. And I don't know, I guess they seen just beating you as like the answer to everything. That's really all they did. They didn't really hug you and love you and stuff like that. It was just more like the guardians there were more like control freaks. Do what I say or I'll beat you. We went to church all the time on Sundays and sometimes during the week, and that's why I never really understood how can people be this mean, but yet you go to church all the time. What are you going to church for? So that's when I started having thoughts about my own opinions about God and stuff like that. I didn't really have anybody to look up to in that place, because I felt alone anyway. And when you're alone, you start to get suicidal thoughts. And, I don't know if I can say that word on this channel, but yeah, you get thoughts of wanting to take your own life. And So years later, it started turning into like big depression, and big wanting to take your life. You know, um, by the time I was 8, I was already like cutting my skin and stuff like that, trying to like ease the pain, so to speak. Like I said, wasn't treated very well in this place, so my confidence didn't really follow me at school. Got in a lot of fights, always people that were bigger and older than me. It's never like people like my age really. And I told myself I was gonna grow up on my own. So I stayed with these people till and I was like maybe 5th grade. I started writing music, and that's what sort of like was my therapy.
Mhm.
So usually when you write about real life experiences that go on, you write about what's going on. And when by the time I was about 14 years old, maybe about 13, 14, something like that, um, I went to visit my grandma for the weekend, and my guardians and their kid like went through all my stuff in my room, and they found the music I wrote. So they kicked me out of the house, and they found the music I wrote because it was a bunch of bad things I said about them.
Mhm.
But I mean, the paper had teardrops on, like dried up teardrops. It was crazy. But I was explaining my real life, and I guess they didn't like that. So they said, well, he never has to come back here. So then I moved into another place, and another place by the time I was in high school. And then, like, by the time high school came, I was very popular. So I didn't really have those like suicidal thoughts in
Mhm.
high school. So it was all good because I was like really social, really popular. Problem with being social is my grades kind of sucked after a while because I was so social. After high school, my friends started moving to life, doing their own things, and me personally, I felt behind. Like they had parents, they had like even like some foster kids. I knew that like their foster parents it wasn't as bad as how I came up. Like the people I lived with, they were all about money, and
Mhm.
they were all about like, well, we get money to take care of you, and that's it. But it's like, where? How come I'm not seeing any of this? But I just like I said, I felt alone. My friends were going off doing things. I was never one that like asked for help or say I'm in trouble. I just sort of kept it in or stayed quiet. Um, so I just started planning inside. And when you plan stuff, when you have stuff inside, it's not really good, especially if you don't feel like you have anyone to talk to, because it just takes over and consumes your mind. So these started bringing more suicidal thoughts. So in my early 20s, I was like trying like certain like drugs or whatever.
Mhm.
And that sort of got boring. So then I started drinking all the time, but then that got boring. So I just said, they're like, there's basically nothing for me to do here. There's no reason for me to be here. Suicidal thoughts took over.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I just rather be dead. I don't want to be here. And I had, like I said, I had my own doubts about God and the angels. I didn't believe in angels, first of all, but I had my thoughts about God. I'm like, if I leave, since they say that suicide is the unforgivable sin. You can never be forgiven for that. So I'm like, well, you know what? If a God puts me through this whole life like I lived, and he has, and seeing how much I'm suffering, and I want to leave, and then he's still going to make me burn for eternity, I don't want any of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want any of this. So I started planning, and I didn't really care what my future held. Like, if I burn for eternity, I burn. Who cares? Like, I was that fed up. So I went by the train tracks and planned a suicide. I was like, let me lay in front of this train track, and I wanted to time each and every train at what time they came. So I did, and I knew exactly what time I was gonna go. So one day I met my friends, and we were like having this like argument. And I left. That's all I remember. I left. And walking down the street, they they honked their horn. They're like, "Get in the car, get in the car." So I get in the car. So I'm like, "Damn! Like my plan is ruined now." Got to come up with a whole new plan. I thought about this for months. This is like my brainchild plan. So at this exact moment, it just so happens my mom happened to call me, which I haven't talked to her in
Mhm.
years. Like, mind you, it's been so many years. I've seen her. I can count like on two hands the amount of times all my life that I've seen her. So it wasn't many. But this day, at this moment, she calls me. So I'm like, wait, how did you get my number in the first place? She says your grandma gave it to me and says you've been asking about me. And I wanted to tell you, don't ask about me. I'm not your mom. I don't want you. I never wanted you. Like, I'm not your mom. So I said, F you, you never were. Looked at the phone, tossed it out the window. And my friend just turned and they kept driving. And I just looked at them because I'm in the driver's side. I mean passenger side. They're on the driver's side driving. So I looked at my friend and I said, F this. I opened the door, jumped out. That's my near-death experience started. So first thing I just remember like this boom, like my back of my head hit the concrete. And just that boom sound I just remember. And yeah, so I remember being just completely in this nothingness. Everything was like slow motion and there's like just black, blue, green, all these just different colors. There's nothing there but colors. So I felt like the strong, very strong presence, and it was God. You might know him as God. There's certain names for God, but I knew him as God. If I known him as like Jamal or Jerry, he'd be like, "Hi, how you doing? I'm Jerry."
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah. So like the first thing, and it was all telepathy here, but you felt it, and it was like everything was like speaking to you here, like lightning, like strikes, just striking every time you spoke. And like the first thing he said was like, "Let me reintroduce myself." And I had all these questions already in my head, and in the order of the questions, the answers came in that order. So it's like, let me reintroduce myself. I am God. Yes, I am real. Yes, angels are real. They're a gift from me. Want to meet them? Want to meet them? And I was like, no. Yeah. So I didn't believe angels existed. I didn't believe any of that. I thought like angels were just for TV. But and like I said, I even told the Almighty, like God, like no, like I don't want to meet angels. Like why would I do that? I don't even believe in them. So I just see like this projection screen, and okay, so here's a girl walking by like a prostitute. Here's a guy in a briefcase walking by in a suit, dressed up in a suit. He passes by. Then here's a guy on a skateboard with a joint in his mouth, just skateboarding away, like. And I'm like, and then God just says, I love them. Like, I love him. I love her. I love him. So I took that as like, God has no favorites. Like, he loves us all the same. So then I'm like, well, like, what am I? Oh, and he says, I will go to the end of the world. So everyone is with me. And then I seen like these big words, all capital letters, and the way I took it, it's explaining his characteristics, his character, explaining his personality. I think this still comes from the let me reintroduce myself part. Yeah. So I get loving, caring flies by, and then like with a bunch of exclamation points at the end, there was one that said long suffering, and it just like flew like long suffering. So I'm like, whoa, this is big, you know? And I just seen like in slow motion, here's this guy walking by with his child, and he grabs his child by the neck and is just like carrying him like that, like in a mean, vicious way. And then God was just like, I don't like that. It wasn't like, I'm gonna punish you and you're gonna burn, like how I thought, you know, I was taught like, look how he's grabbing his kid, you're gonna burn for that. Like, no. He was just like, I don't like that. That was it. So I'm like, what am I supposed to do if I go back and like people are gonna think I'm crazy? Like, what am I supposed to tell them? And then God says, go and tell everyone that I love them. So at that very moment, I felt like I'm like, okay, when I get back, I'm just gonna go around the whole city and country and be like, God loves you, God loves you, like that. So I felt, and like I said, I didn't see God's face. I always try to clarify this to people. I did not see God. Like, I didn't visually see God. I felt him and heard him. Well, I say it because he got on a knee just like you would to like your little child or something like that. You like get on your knee and you level with him and you talk to him. gone and I just felt this big hug wrap around me, like big hug, and it was like tight, and I felt safe.
No.
And then I felt him get up, and I'm like, whoa, like, why did he let go? Like, I thought I was gonna be like this forever, and then you just let go. Like, how do you do this? Like, who does that? So, yeah, I felt, but that love was more intense than more loving than any woman in this whole world could give you.
Yeah.
Way more. But then he was so like macho, like the strength of him, I knew he was like the most macho dude in the whole existence. So I'm like, that's why I'm thinking like, oh my God, he's gonna kill me. God's gonna kill me. He doesn't know the things I did and said in this world. But so I'm even wondering too this whole time, like, why me? Like, why do you want me? And he's like, I'm like, listen, okay, let me go get perfect, and then I'll come back, and then I'll see you. And he's like, no, like, I want you now, like how you are now. And I'm like, I felt all these like blemishes around me, like certain things that are wrong, like that were wrong with me. I want to get rid of them and then come back, and then like then we'll talk. But he's like, no, like I want you now. So, all right. So next part, boom. I'm with angels, like literally in the sky with angels. Like now, these angels I can visually see, just like I'm looking at anything else. The first thing I remember that I was in the sky, and there were clouds, and there were a bunch of Bibles that were just being thrown around and tossed around. And I knew like these were my thoughts. Like, oh shoot, I didn't read the Bible before I tried to kill myself. Like, I'm gonna burn in hell now. Like, that was all I was like concerned about. I'm gonna burn. It's crazy. So after that, there was like a group. Oh, and there were a bunch of crosses, like crosses and Bibles just being thrown around. And there was a bunch of angels, like in group, this big group. There's only two though in particular that I, for some reason, got my attention. One on my left, one on my right. Huge. About 9 feet tall, huge. It was insane. I looked at my left. This one sort of like kind of like I like to say beetle type of face, but that's the only way I could really explain it. Like sort of a beetle type of face. He wasn't a human, I don't think at all for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But the wings were more wide, like 5 feet wide, and it was tall, like 9 feet. I look at my left side, at my right side, and this one is human, like really human. He had on blue jeans and a flannel shirt, and the red flannel shirt, and the sleeves were rolled up to the elbows. Like he reminded me of a construction worker. I often say, if you ever watched that show Roseanne, it was like Dan Connor.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the best way I can explain it. Curly hair, brown curly hair, but no facial hair, and was buff. Like you seen his muscles like ripped. I remember the first thing I seen was his sandals, brown sandals. I looked up and was like, whoa. I'm like, if one foot touched the floor, half my city would be destroyed. Like that, literally just that powerful, just it would be gone. I just knew that from when I seen him. So I look at my left side, and that angel's like stern. Are you sure you want to go? And I'm like, it scared me because I was like, I knew it. I knew they were going to make me burn because they all had a hold of each arm. One had one arm, one had the other arm, because they're in the first thing they were saying, like, no, it's okay. It's okay. You're going to be okay. Don't be scared. I was like, get me out here. Get me out here. They're like, no, it's okay. So that's when this one is telling me, like, are you sure you want to go? Like, stern and mad. I'm like, I don't know.
Oh.
I'm not going to look at you. So I looked at the one on my right. I was like, yeah, let me look at this guy. I was like, he's way bigger than him. He's probably going to just tear me to bits. But wrong. Just the one on my right side is like soft spoken and goes, you have so much to do for so many people. And when he said that, I'm like, I do? Like, I have so much to do for so many people? Like,
yeah. Me?
You got the wrong one, pal, but they didn't have the wrong one, I guess. So they had me, they said, look down. So I looked down. They're like, you need to know this stuff really happens. Look down. So I looked down. Mind you, I'm still in the sky. I'm looking down. The friend I was with during my experience was way over separated from me on their phone. And then here is the paramedics working on me. Like, here's like all, I just remember all these lights, like cops and like, I think there were fire trucks, if I'm not mistaken. I just remember so many lights. I do know there were like the cops, cars, sirens, and then the paramedics were over me. So I'm looking at my body laying on the floor. And so that's when I'm like, so I look at my angels and they're like, no, look again. And it was like a camera zoomed way down, like a camera. And I see my body and I'm like, what? And I'm literally laying there and they're thinking I'm dead. Like, this is it. But I'm like, I'm not dead. Like, I'm right here.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not, I didn't die. I'm right here. But I'm
Were
like,
you
how
trying
do,
to get their attention at any point?
yeah, like,
Yeah.
I was just kind of like, wait a minute, like, how come they can't see me? Like, I'm right here. So the angels that I were with were like, this stuff really does happen. And I'm like, this stuff really does happen? Like, it's like, so, yeah, um, so after that, they're like, so, oh, here's also the ultimate question was, with my same Mr. Friend that said, are you sure you want to go?
Yeah.
And this stern voice was like, do you want to stay or do you want to go? And I'm like, I look at the one on my right. I'm like, I'm going back to him. I look at the one on my right. I'm like, I'll go back. Like, something just initially just made me, it did, like, no wasn't an option. I just for somehow knew I must go back. I have to. And that's when I chose to come back. And then I guess next thing you know, I guess I woke up in the ambulance, but I didn't know I was in the freaking ambulance. I just knew that something was bothering my neck, and then I went back to sleep. Like, I don't know. That's all I knew. And then I woke up, I guess, a couple of days later in the hospital, in ICU. And then the nurse was like, oh my God, like, we thought you were gone. Like, you're a miracle and everything. Said I hemorrhaged so much. I bled out. They said I don't know. I didn't even know what hemorrhaging was until years later. But then they said, like, they used a lot of bags. Like, I went through a lot of bags. And I'm like, what? Like, what's going on? Bags, like those, like in those hospital bags, like the ones that are right next to the bed. I don't know what they're called.
With clear, fluid. Yeah.
Those, yeah. They said I went through those. Like, I bled through, I guess, a lot of those.
God.
Yeah. So they knew for sure there was something like in my head, and I just went through through these tunnels. It's still not even like clear to me. I just went through these tunnels, like where these like little machines, and they have you lay down, and then they take you back to your room and all that, like wheelchair you back to your room or stuff like that. A few days later, I got out of the hospital and was wheelchaired out, and I remember I just pretty much looked up at the sky, and I knew something happened. Like, when I seen the concrete, that boom feeling.
Yeah.
That boom sound was like deja vu. It came back to me. Yeah. And but I kept it a secret until maybe weeks or months later, something like that.
Wow. That's incredible. When you were up with the angels, how far above the concrete were you, would you say?
It was very high. That's all I know. Like, it wasn't like so high to where. Oh, one thing I did forget to mention. There was this thing I call a donut hole in that, and if I I guess the angels were trying to convince me not to cross that hole.
Okay.
So had I walked, because they left it up to me. So had I walked through that hole, then I would have went to the next universe or whatever. But yeah, so I wasn't high enough to let's say, go like just to see the universe.
Mm-hmm.
But it was high enough to where I'm looking at the clouds and I can still look down and zoom in and then see my body close.
Yeah.
I
And
seen
that's,
like the churches. I seen the churches that were around the police station. The how I seen all that stuff. So
mhm.
yeah,
Wow. And that zooming was kind of, was it like you're out and then a zoom, like a lens going inwards?
that's exactly what it was. Just like a camera.
Yeah.
How, like even like on your phone, you might press like the zoom button, then you see it
Mhm.
go closer and closer. Even if you're far away, like you just go closer and closer and closer. That's what happened.
Wow. Wow. And did you have a sense of that 360 vision that people talk about? Um, you know what I'm saying? Where you can kind of see everything at once.
Well, like I said, the only thing I was seeing was when I looked down and I was seeing like the churches here, the paramedics. Here's my friend way separated from me. And I even told them, I'm like, I seen you like on your phone, like way far apart from me. I seen that, right?
Mm,
She's like, you seen that? I'm like, yeah. She's like, yeah, the cops, they separated me from you. I was like, what? That's crazy. So,
wow.
yeah.
Wow. And the angels. So you talk about how you communicate still. You communicate still with your angels?
Yes, they communicate with me. They don't really stop talking. It's just constant day in, day out. Even like in your sleep, you wake up. Your brain never really rests. Like they're always just talking to you.
Yeah. And are they the two, the bug kind of one and then the human one? Those are the ones that you communicate with?
Those, those. And I know they stuck around. And I guess like in reality, they told me they've always been around. And it kind of reminded me of a couple incidents when I was growing up. They're like, remember that little voice that was talking to you in the morning? You're getting ready for school and like the second grade and this and that. They're like, remember you were sort of talk back mentally to that thing? They're like, that was us. Like we've always been there and we always will be.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And um, are they when you hear them, is it like an audible other voice, or is it just kind of they're in your thoughts and they I don't know how to describe it, but they move through your own thoughts?
Telepathy moves through your thoughts. These, you can tell who's who.
Mm-hmm.
Like they talk through your thoughts, but it's not like they sound the same.
Yeah.
It's totally different. You can tell like when one's happy, when one's angry, or when one's like, they have senses of humor. I will say that. So you hear something, they might have a sense of humor and they're laughing at me and then I'm like not so amused at something they said and they're laughing at, and I'm like, or I might say something and I'm like, oh, and they don't laugh and I'm like, oh, I thought that was funny.
No.
Yeah, they have their own personalities. You can't really get confused who's who. Like if someone came to me and said, "Hi, my name's Hillary. I just did your podcast," I'd be like, "Liar, lies, you're lying."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I often wonder because very recently, I was going through a stomach issue and I was half asleep really late at night. And I had a male voice come into my head, very clear, telling me stay away from citrus of all things. And I was actually
Oh,
cognizant cognizant enough to say what citrus, because I don't really eat oranges. And they showed me these vitamin D supplements that I was taking, that was C and D together. It just kind of flashed before my eyes. And ever since that, I thought, oh my gosh, like, is that a guardian angel? Do you think? Like, is that coming through that voice? It was such a distinct male voice, right?
Okay, then yeah,
Yeah, maybe, eh?
yeah. I mean, people that are closed-minded don't really. The first thing they might think is like, "Oh no, you're just hearing things," or "That's just yourself talking to you." That was your own thoughts, but literally, the spirit world tries to somehow get a hold of you as best as they can. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it probably was something that you heard. I would go with that.
Yeah, yeah. And when you saw the donut, circular donut, were you compelled at all? Were you pulled towards it at all, or were you just kind of looking at it?
I was in thought,
Mm-hmm.
but in my thought process, I'm thinking like, here are these angels' chance to convince me not to step into that hole.
Mm-hmm.
But like us, so I was scared of the burning for eternity and all the stuff. I was like, this is a trick. If I go through this hole, they're telling me it's gonna be okay because they're tricking me. These are probably demons that I met. Like,
Oh,
yeah, no, I was thinking so much stuff. I had trust issues and they know it. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And and so did you, I mean, afterwards and maybe towards the end, uh, before you came back into your body, did you have an opening of, I'd say your heart or trust, or, did you trust them afterwards?
I trusted them when they told me to look down at my body.
Uh,
I did. And then they told me, no, you need to see this stuff really does happen. That's when I knew I trusted them, when they had me look down again. So
mm-hmm.
I can be perfectly sure. Because when I got back, they knew I would ask questions like, well, how did I know what happened? And how do I know that you weren't just seeing things when this happened? How do I wasn't seeing just,
Oh, right.
so I always have some type of thing, but I had actual proof. I looked down and then they told me to look back down. So I did. I literally seen everything around me. So that's when I knew it
Yeah.
really did happen.
Wow. Um, and what all this time were they telepathically, were you, it was a telepathic communication, like a heartfelt, I'm guessing.
Yeah. But like I said, like you could feel the sternness. Like you don't hear the voice like inaudible say, "Are you sure you want to go?" But you can look at him, and then his thought is coming into me exactly how he said it. "Are you sure you want to go?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is it like what we hear about a lot where, you know, you have a thought and it's almost instantaneously answered? Do you know what I mean?
Then yes, at that exact moment. But no, it's not like that forever. There's been certain things I've asked them and years ago and still haven't got the answer for it yet.
Mm-hmm.
So it just really depends. They might wait a few days, a week, and certain things are just instantly. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there's certain things now I'm like, it's been years now. I would love to know the answer.
Yeah. Seriously.
Hmm.
Um, and so, what about besides being able to communicate on a daily basis? Um, what other after effects did you find yourself with? Did you find yourself with after effects?
I can't wear watches.
Oh no, yeah.
They always go out, whether they're new or not. They just always go out. And I used to always wear watches before this. I loved watches.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm an avid watch collector. I can't imagine not being able to wear one.
Yeah. I can't wear them.
Yeah, and and so what are your, I guess, and people probably ask you this a lot, But I suppose what would be your message to people that are going through a tough time themselves, thinking about taking their own life?
Stick around. It will get better. And there's at least one person that you can talk to. There has to be at least one, even if you don't think so. There might be one person that can make you change your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't exactly have to do what I did, because I did it. But I personally think you should stick around.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And now, are you scared of death, of the future? In the future?
No.
Yeah. And the going back to when you were with God, right? You said you couldn't see face or anything like that. You just kind of felt. And I know it's probably indescribable. Like you can't. It's not like you can really use words to describe it. But that those messages that were coming through him into your soul. Where did you feel those messages? Was it in your mind of your soul, or like in your heart of your soul?
Both. Like I say, you hear it here,
Mm-hmm.
and then you feel it here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the thought you might hear, like, take that trash out.
Yeah.
But then in your heart, you feel the emotion behind that. Like, boy, take that trash out. Like, you can feel it,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And do you still feel a connection to God, to, the universe, all that?
I feel the strongest connection ever since my experience. I feel a connection to the plants. Like, oh my God, like the
Oh, really?
trees and the grass. And like, that's why like certain areas like the park and stuff like that, those have always been my meditation spots because
Mm-hmm.
I just always felt peace, like just looking at the sky, and then here's the grass, the trees are right here, and then you like hear the animals going. You're like, whoa, this is pretty amazing.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
feels like a dose of heaven in a way, I guess.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts on how do I say this? So I know there's a lot of people in the groups, and they have many beautiful questions, and I often look at them and wonder myself, and I wonder about the the veil, right? We talk about the veil, and where that what are your thoughts on where that veil begins and ends? You were up, you were in the sky, so to speak. But is heaven, is source, is that beyond the sky out in the universe, or do you think it's just right here with us, and we're kind of right there already?
I believe, in my personal opinion, when you think of heaven, it's nothing like this.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is even not even, maybe this is like 5%, like when you're at your happiest and your best peaceful tranquility state and all that stuff. It's here in your head and you can feel it in your heart and everything. That's beautiful. But I feel like the real heaven is way beyond.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And do you think it's um a place way beyond, or is it like, if I thought about it dimensionally, interdimensionally, is it just right here beyond our perception? I
I
hope
feel like it's a place.
you think it's a place.
I think it's a place. I feel like if the world were a better place here now,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it could be a taste of what heaven can be.
Mm-hmm.
Like if people were at peace, everybody got along, everybody like a whole good world, you know, type thing, then yeah, I could see like a dose of what heaven would be like. But I feel like the actual heaven, everything in here in this life that exists is probably like trash compared to what real heaven is. Like I feel like all the trees and the grass and stuff like that out here have nothing on the actual trees and plants that are in heaven.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
When this just reminds me, when I take, because I'm a hypnotherapist and I take people to source, to their soul level, and they often talk about, much like NDEs, where people say, you know, the colors are indescribable, you know, the grass has its own, it's like it's breathing on its own, you know, it's everything has its own life force that you can feel and see. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so what, if you don't mind me asking, like what are your thoughts on like reincarnation and stuff like that? Do you?
That's one thing that I didn't believe in years ago
Mm-hmm.
before my near death experience. But like I said, that near death experience opened up my mind to so much stuff. Like I don't really doubt certain things I usually would. So as far as like reincarnation, I do believe it does exist.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've been here quite a few times. Um, I've had reoccurring dreams since I was a kid
Oh, really?
about visions like of past lives I've had.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, there's just two main particular past lives dreams that I have, and I wish I could like put the pieces of the puzzle together. But like every time I have this dream, even to this day, I still have this dream.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, so like every time I have it, I'm trying to like remember it so I could like put the pieces together, like of what happened. All I do know is there's like this one life I was like this Asian guy who was poor, didn't have shoes or anything like that. And he didn't care about his family or God or anyone. He only cared about himself.
Mm-hmm.
But then I also had another life where I was rich, this rich white guy. And I think I lived like in Paris. I forgot where the hell I lived. But I was a very horrible person there too. Like I didn't care about God, didn't care about family, didn't care. I didn't care about anyone but me. Like I was a horrible person in both. So like that's what they had in common. So like, but I think I was honestly killed in that one, with in the Paris one. I know that for sure. I was killed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so besides those two, I think honestly, I believe that like my purpose here now is to like live life a good life and be like a good person, so that way I don't have to come back here because I don't want to come back here.
Yeah. I hear
Yeah,
that from people.
yeah,
I'd like to be a guide in my next life.
or something like give me another deal.
Yeah.
Don't make me do the actual like Earth experience, please.
Yeah.
Like I'll do anything. I'll tell God. I'll tell him this. Like I'll be like, please, I'll do anything. Please don't send me there. Please don't send me there.
Yeah. Go to another planet.
Something, but no, I don't even want to do another planet. My thing is just like, let me stay here in heaven, please.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've done enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts about what's over there? Like what we do in our life between lives, so to speak?
I can only go by what I've heard from people that have been to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I haven't seen a slightest hint of heaven, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, that donut hole, if I walked in there, it would have showed me. But who knows if I would have been here today.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah. So, because I probably would have been like, I'm not going back there.
Yeah.
I'm not going back there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I know people, some like from what I've heard, like we have like big mansions up there, like, and they're built perfectly, like for us. Everything we like is just perfect. And
Mm-hmm.
then we can like have our old past life friends and family and what they call like soul groups and people that were like your people that played the role of your family in past lives and stuff like that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool. I don't really doubt that stuff anymore because spirit world is way too big to just limit or put a limit on.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I hear like manifestation. It's just a thought over there, right? It's just a thought, and then it's there
Hmm.
in front of you.
Like you're like eggs, bacon, sausage.
Yeah, right.
Hey, it's here. Yeah, I wish it was like that. No.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, that'd be really nice. Oh man, I don't know if you can taste though over there, so maybe that's one thing I know.
Yeah, I think
Coffee.
I've heard you can. I heard you can taste.
Can you?
Yeah, they said you could smell and taste and wear clothes. So I'll have clothes, you know? So,
Robes and
yeah.
well, okay. Well, I think we're just about over time, but it was wonderful talking to you, Chris. And yeah, we'll have to do this again sometime.
It was good talking to you too. And
Yeah,
just let me know when you want me back.
absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, so have a wonderful, wonderful day there in California, hot California.
Southern California, yes.
Okay, well, we'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.